So good morning all, and thank you all for your attendance, and sorry for this technical issue. Welcome to all of you to this series of 4 webinars organized in partnership with the Union for the Mediterranean, UFM, and it's in purpose, as you may know, all of you, it's now the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process. And with this time we are passing through with the pandemic situation, this is the occasion to sit back behind our computers, of course, and think for concrete solution and action to relaunch our common situation and our common vision by sharing your experience and your best practice. We will try to do it today with all our speakers. All the countries in the world are facing the same thing. It's a terrible social and economic crisis, not to mention the environment changes and the decline of most our political situation, particularly in southern countries. So this new way of work to face the new reality, to push the need of digitalization of the economy and services and of our meetings. So recovery plan on each country is an emergency, but what are the real action into the ground that works, particularly in the South Mediterranean countries? What are the challenges faced by the business support organization? And today, as employers organization with our members and the representative of the private sector as the key job creator in the Euro-Mediterranean region, is the SDGs a solution as an engagement for transforming the private sector and connecting our business initiative as a response to the COVID-19 in terms of employment, employability, and sustainability of our MSMEs or of MSMEs? So today we will hear several experts from different countries in the Euro-Mediterranean region that will share with us action they implemented in their own countries to help SMEs and some example of best practices. And hopefully in the end of these 4 webinars, we can come with some recommendation with a roadmap that will be shared with the Euro-Mediterranean community and with a common vision, of course, in order to relaunch our common vision. And I will use the word that we used 25 years ago, our Mare Nostrum. So I will not take the floor too much. I will leave the floor to my colleague and honored to be here today, Mr. Mohammed Al-Razaz, in charge of the Economic Development and Employment Division in the Union for the Mediterranean. We are really thankful for UFM to support our initiatives, and hopefully we will continue our collaboration in the future. So Mohammed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jihan. Can you all hear me well?
Perfect.
Excellent. So a very good morning to you all. And I would like to thank the team from BUSINESSMED, the colleagues, for this kind invitation. I'm very glad to form part of this constellation of speakers. And we are very keen on further consolidating this partnership with BUSINESSMED. It already exists and we want to give it more momentum. So please allow me to start with this quote by a very famous Polish thinker and philosopher, Zygmunt Bauman, who's telling us that questioning the unquestionable premises of our way of life is arguably the most pressing, the most urgent of services that we owe our fellow human beings and ourselves. The truth is, the current global challenge is coercing us into reconsidering, into rethinking our way of life the way it was before the current pandemic. Zygmunt Bauman is known for having developed the concept of liquid modernity, but I dare say that we have moved from a liquid to an ethereal modernity, a development that seems to be a natural inevitability. We all remember very well the crisis of 2008, which left no stone unturned, and for which the whole world had to pay a hefty price. It already forms part of our modern prehistory, if you may. Now a new global crisis is brazenly intruding upon our dream and our ambition. Every day, the paper boy brings more. Every day we see sad, long faces in the news announcing sad statistics, more drastic measures, no more restrictions. And this comes at a time when the World Economic Forum tells us that 35% of the skills that we deem essential today will be completely irrelevant in 5 years. And it seems that the whole world is ushered into a state of despair. But if anything, history has taught us that behind and beyond every global crisis, there lurks an opportunity. And there is hope in the aftermath. There is an opportunity for those that are well positioned and prepared to capture this opportunity. And the current pandemic crisis is no exception. We know that the pandemic hit very hard, and it hit some countries and some regions harder than others. Mostly countries with structural economic vulnerabilities, with high debt exposure, with high dependency on Chinese and Far Eastern supply chains and value chains, countries with low spendings on healthcare and security, to the end of the long list. No? And we know that the impact will pretty much persist into 2021, unfortunately. So we know also that individuals were not hit equally by the crisis. Actually, the crisis has further deepened the socioeconomic disparities. No, mostly individuals from the poorer end of the spectrum who are likely to be employed in the informal sector or self-employed are the ones hit hardest. Also, individuals with a single skill set that function or that work for a non-strategic sector, and those who have not been able to reskill or to upskill over the past 5 years. Now, as the whole world awakens to the immensity of what it has lost and what it stands to lose even more, we can fairly say that the case for a transition to a low carbon economy becomes as evident as Archimedes. It becomes very clear. And if we talk about the private sector, what future for the private sector in the post-pandemic? Well, we know that industries would have to do one of the 3 R's. They would have to be reformed, restructured, or removed. And again, the World Economic Forum tells us that companies that are likely to succeed in the post-pandemic horizon are companies that would be able to combine agility with flexibility. Flexibility to adapt and to be able to absorb the tremors and the shock waves of the current crisis, and agility to be able to adjust to the new supply chain models that will be reconfigured in the wake of the pandemic and its aftermath. Also, the investment in digitalization and in new technologies is no longer a matter of choice. It becomes a matter of fact for companies if they want to survive in the aftermath. Now, analysts around the world are pointing out sectors. So this was only an introduction to tell you about the impact, and you already have all the figures regarding the socioeconomic impact of the crisis. But if we talk about opportunities, because I said we do see opportunities, and we see some economic sectors that seem to usher the way and pave the road into a post-pandemic recovery. In general, experts talk to us about some of these promising sectors. And in all honesty, it's only common sense to think that digital technologies and tech solutions would be among the sectors that would boom. They are already booming now. New energies, project management, healthcare and healthcare technologies, risk assessment and insurance, to the end of the list. But also, we can speak about entire approaches to the economic model. We can talk about social economy, we can talk about creative economy, and we can talk about blue economy. Luckily, the UFM Secretariat is already active on all 3 of them. I did not put the obvious, digital technology and green technology, no, but these are some of the sectors where most of the opportunities are expected to be created. Okay, now if I talk about some of the skills for the future, I do not want to reinvent the wheel really, but when we talk about skills for the future, we already have many recommendations from such organizations as ILO, the UNIDO, OECD, World Bank, European Training Foundation, and they talk to us about a set of skills for the future that include, but are not limited to, such skills as entrepreneurial resilience, such skills as data literacy, coding, cross-cultural management, to the end of the very long list. No, digital skills, blue skills, green skills for the future. But back to the private sector, I want to say that UFM has moved since day one of this COVID crisis to adapt its work program and its areas of priority in a way that would be conducive to a post-pandemic recovery. This is why we have been revisiting our private sector strategy. And this strategy is twofold. It's not only to support and empower the private sector companies, but also to make sure we engage them in the sustainable and the human development efforts in the region, the SDGs, as an anchor and a framework of reference. Also, we keep on promoting our flagship initiative for job creation and SME support and cultivating a culture of entrepreneurship and promoting employability and skill development in the region, which is the MED for Jobs, the Mediterranean Initiative for Jobs, launched back in 2013 in Tunisia, and now fully fledged. It's a pipeline of 13 labeled projects that has benefited over 100,000 beneficiaries in the region, mostly youth and young people and women, and also supported over SMEs, over 800 MSMEs in the region. We have the second edition of this stakeholders dialogue for the MED for Jobs taking place actually next week to think what's next in the post-pandemic. I really do not want to monopolize your time further. I understand I have a 10-minute slot, so I will end it here, but I want to end on another quote, if I may.
You still have time. You still have time.
Ah, okay, then fantastic.
Go ahead.
Then I will share the quote without rushing into it.
Yeah, if you have some more ideas to put in front of us, we are ready to hear it.
Excellent. No, I just want to say that employment and job creation in the post-pandemic aftermath are obviously among our most pressing priorities now. We have a strategic partnership with GIZ from Germany, the German Development Cooperation. We already launched a grant scheme, this time for not-for-profit organizations and non-governmental organizations, but we are working on other schemes also for the private sector development in the region. And as you well know, MSMEs are the main vehicle and the main engine of growth and job creation in the region. But we want this job creation to be smart. We want sustainable jobs. We want job creation that would be inclusive and responsible and sustainable into the future. And for that, we have been focusing on these promising sectors that I shared with you, green economy, digital economy, blue economy, social economy. And we're very happy to offer our support to ongoing efforts to accompany existing efforts and to further expand and consolidate our ecosystem of institutional and financial partners. But to this end, I would like to share one last quote by the famous scientist Carl Sagan, and he says that we make our world more significant by the courage of our questions and by the depth of our answers. More than any other time, this morale should guide our moral compass into posing, reflecting, and asking the questions that matter and providing the answers that make our world significant. This is where the beam of the scales is to be found. I thank you very much for your attention. I insist and I reconfirm our commitment to accompany all the existing efforts towards a post-pandemic recovery. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Razaz, for your intervention. It was a very rich one. And we have now, we can open the floor for the panelists for 7 and 10 minutes of discussion. If we have some question or some ideas to put in front of Mr. Razaz and to debate between us. And I will do it in this way. I will begin by Mr. Rabia Sabra, and I will ask him, what do you think about the intervention or the ideas that Mr. Razaz has put in front of us? Open your speaker, Mr. Sabra. Hello, you don't hear me?
Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, nice. Mr. Sabra, Mr. Razaz has put many ideas and many conflicting things in front of us, and I want from you in 2 minutes to tell us what is your ideas or main ideas about what Mr. Razaz said about the situation in the Mediterranean and the situation after the COVID in this sense.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Hisham. I'm really pleased to be present among you today, and I thank BUSINESSMED and UFM for allowing me to intervene.
Mr. Sabra, we are not in your presentation. We are now in the, we are discussing little bit and questioning little bit Mr. Razaz.
I totally agree with Mr. Razaz's viewpoints. He addressed a picture of the post-COVID effects on enterprises and MSMEs in the region. I totally agree. And I think that one of UFM's main mission in supporting especially MSMEs in our region is through concrete initiatives and projects. We have, since the beginning of the COVID-19 outspread, we have attended a lot of webinars and online meetings, but I think it's now time for the UFM as a main representative of the EU in the region to make concrete actions. Excuse me, this is my phone.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Aida, I want in 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes to put some some of your ideas about, or what do you think about the position of UFM now in the Mediterranean, and how we can get more of their support for the South Mediterranean private sector, organization, employers, employee, and all the labor market in the South Mediterranean countries.
Good morning, everyone, and also thank you very much, BUSINESSMED, for this invitation. I will be very keen to join Mr. Sabra in what he says about the SMEs and the economic world in the South Mediterranean needs now some concrete actions and support, maybe from our organizations, to understand better what's going on, to also have the tools to be more flexible, to join this digital world very quickly if possible, and to be aware of all also the human rights maybe consequences, because when we talk about SMEs, we talk about people, about families, about social situations, very difficult in these times, knowing also that the pandemic will go until like mid 2021 or end of 2021, and of course the impact, as Mr. Mohammed Razaz said, will be going until end of 2021. So we really need to have more concrete actions in terms of giving more tools to these SMEs, and also more information and better communication, because I think that really some of the SMEs are very worried. They don't really know how to cope with this pandemic, how to go ahead with some problems of financing or of human resources. So I think that this is my point, is to be more concrete and to be and to explain what is agility. It's not only a term, it's really to put more resources maybe to provide these SMEs and enterprises tools to understand better the environment post-COVID.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aida. And Sharon, what do you think about how is the situation in Malta regarding what Mr. Razaz said? how you are performing in this condition.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be with you this morning. I agree totally with what Mr. El-Razaz has pointed out. The world of work was changing and is changing very quickly. Some companies are struggling with COVID. It has increased the process of change. We were talking of the fourth industrial revolution and the skills that we need. And all of a sudden COVID happened and we have to adapt very, very quickly. As business support organizations, we are trying to support our members as much as possible, keep providing information, keep them up to date with what is happening. However, yes, national governments and European and international organizations have to keep supporting what we can't provide, what companies cannot provide on their own. It's happening, the change is happening, it's happening very, very fast, maybe faster than we've predicted. So it's important to keep updated and have the support needed.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Good morning, Ines, and welcome. Ines, maybe you did not hear the total presentation of Mr. Razaz, but I think you have heard a big part of it. And what do you think about all the situation of the digitization and how UFM can help in this making this shift now in the Mediterranean? In 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Truly happy to be here among those amazing experts. I mean, it's obvious what is happening. It's obvious that this COVID-19 thing is rushing things, and actually nobody and no company is ready for that. But what we can do, to my mind, is actually accelerating digital transformation. I mean, this is like a huge global project kind of that is meant to happen. We were already going through a kind of global digital transformation, right? And I will try to explain and go a little bit deeper in what digital transformation is in my presentation in a few minutes. But the idea is that we need to accelerate, we need to go further, and with the skills gap that is happening, what is missing actually is education, is learning, is continuous learning to kind of close this gap of skills and to help people either upskill, or meaning, you know, gain new skills, new layers, okay, or completely reskill in order to adapt to the new needs of the market, the new jobs that are coming. And this is something that was supposed to happen. I mean, I wanna insist on that. It's not something that is new or that is, I mean, COVID-19 is not responsible for that. It just accelerated what was supposed to happen in probably 5 years from now or 10 years or so. But what happened is, just like Sharon said, and I completely agree with her, it accelerated what was supposed already to happen. What was supposed to happen in 5 years happened actually in a few weeks. That's it.
Thank you, Ines. Mr. Razaz, in 2 minutes, can you conclude the position of UFM regarding all the situation in the Mediterranean, especially for the South Mediterranean countries and our conditions we are living?
I will do my best. It will not be easy, but again, the private sector assumes an even bigger role in the post-pandemic recovery. But in order for the private sector to fully realize this role, it has to be empowered and accompanied and, in a way, ushered into what would benefit the region in terms of compliance with the SDGs and the UN agenda. I want to say again that from the UFM Secretariat, we have been very active in promoting the digital transformation in the region as a way to unlock resources and mobilize capacities and facilitate the business doing culture, not only in the north, of course, but in the south and the east. And we have been also very active on promoting south-south and triangular cooperation modalities, whereby we are actively engaged in promoting knowledge transfer from some of the leading and pioneering countries in the digital transformation and in the social economy and in the creative economy fields, like Estonia, like Slovenia, for example. And we are working on technical trainings through which there will be a transfer of knowledge and concrete outcomes to several countries in the north and the east. And I can give names because they are already in the pipelines. I can name Algeria in terms of e-governance. I can name Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia in terms of trainings on rules of origin and trade liberalization, only to name a few examples. So in a nutshell, this is what I want to share.
Thank you, Mr. Razaz. And now we will move to our second session. It will be entitled Employers Debate, a Sustainable Resilient Recovery After COVID-19. And we have two panelists, Mr. Rabia Sabra and Mrs. Sharon Farouja. And we will begin with Mr. Rabia Sabra. Mr. Rabia Sabra is the General Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture of Beirut and Mount Lebanon. And he has a big experience in employers organization and in several decision committees at the national and regional level. Mr. Sabra, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, Hisham. Allow me to share my presentation.
Yes.
Well, I will start by presenting briefly the Beirut Chamber, which is a non-profit organization, private organization working for the public benefit. It was established in 1887 with an annual portfolio, current portfolio of around 15,000 member companies covering all the sectors of the Lebanese economy. The Beirut Chamber is hence the most influential business institution and leads the Lebanese economic organizations. Besides its advocacy role in defending the interests of the private sector at the macro level, the Beirut Chamber provides a wide array of services to member companies and MSMEs, namely certification of origin for exported products, ATA and TIR Carnet for transport facilitation, reports on trade and economic relations with partner countries, training programs through the Lebanese Training Center of the Chamber, resolution of commercial disputes through its Lebanese Arbitration and Mediation Center affiliated to the Chamber, organization of business delegation and trade affairs, and the participation in development projects funded by international donors, namely ENI, CBC projects. Moreover, education, unemployment, adaptation of skills to labor market needs, youth empowerment, gender equality are also among the priorities of our chamber. The Beirut Chamber is the representative of the private sector in the National Committee for the UN SDGs and contributed to the drafting of Lebanon's voluntary national review for 2018. In this context, most of the Chamber's activities and initiatives fall under the 17 pillars, especially those associated to enhancing economic growth, promoting the culture of governance, and responsible business, preserving the environment, fostering human development, encouraging gender equity and decent work. At the level of social protection and decent work, the Beirut Chamber has closely collaborated with international counterparts like the ILO and ETF, the European Training Foundation, in elaborating studies about new health, insurance, and pension plans, in addition to other initiatives on skills mismatch and job creation. The Chamber is also a recognized partner in development projects funded by the EU, targeting economic growth, MSE support, and job creation. EBSOMED is a leading EU-funded project led by BUSINESSMED and aims to enhance business support organizations in the Mediterranean region. We have also been actively involved in ENI CBC projects during the last and the upcoming years, where the recently launched EBSOMED project that aims at creating new jobs for young people, especially needs and women in port logistics professions. On the level of education, the Beirut Chamber initiated 2 years ago the Master in Entrepreneurship program in partnership with the Paris Chamber, ESA, and HEC Business Schools. The Beirut Chamber aimed through this program at supporting Lebanese graduates become entrepreneurs or integrate a future career in entrepreneurial practices, contributing thus to limiting migration and brain drain. Another initiative is Connect, the collaborative network for career building, training, and e-learning, which is a national project launched early this year under Erasmus Plus program. Connect provides support to Lebanese universities in order to better target emerging e-skills and ensure greater integration of digital learning within the business environment, enabling students and graduates to ensure a better transition to the labor market. Gender equality and women empowerment have always been among our top priorities at the levels of our internal organization or activities. Hence, women play a leading role at the Chamber, and they constitute 50% of our staff and 20% of our board of directors. Moreover, the Beirut Chamber actively supports businesswomen organizations, including the National Commission for Lebanese Women at various levels, such as training and event organization. In the same context, the Beirut Chamber recently concluded an MOU with IFC of the World Bank Group that targets the creation of a peer learning platform to promote women's empowerment, retention, and promotion among our member companies through workshops, webinars, and participation in competitions. In Lebanon, the escalating outspread of COVID-19 pandemic came out amidst a critical turning point, whereby the economic and financial downturn added to the devastating blast of Beirut port have significantly afflicted the entire society and economic sectors. Hence, and in the absence of comprehensive public support schemes, MSMEs have been compelled to reduce their activity or completely shut down, with negative consequences that had deterring effects on employment. Moreover, the value of the Lebanese pound has drastically declined against the US dollar, and the depreciation has exceeded 4 times its original value, which impeded the purchasing power of the Lebanese households and engendered high inflation and severe recession. In order to assess the effects of the economic crisis and COVID-19 on Lebanese businesses, the Beirut Chamber inquired on how member enterprises have encountered the resulting problems. 2 surveys were launched for this purpose in collaboration with ILO and IFC. The inquired information targeted MSMEs operating under the main economic sectors, namely construction, food and beverages, electronics, retail, chemicals, plastic, textiles, ICT, and hospitality services. The COVID-19 confinement measures caused severe disruptions in the construction, retail, and hospitality sectors. In contrast, other services have benefited, especially those related to ICT, e-commerce, home delivery services, and video games. This alteration would also bring about a modification in the working conditions in terms of remote means and methods, which poses basic challenges in relation to the internet connectivity and working ethics. In fact, the success of online working tools and procedures are directly dependent on the efficiency of the internet network and the level of discipline and commitment from the workers' side. The main challenges resulting from COVID-19 are associated to the lack of cash flow, the decrease in demand, the limited supply of raw materials, the increase in input prices, the inactivity of business partners. The full operation of businesses was highly constrained due to the restricted movement of workers and goods. Around half of the respondents either laid off workers or planned to do so. The layoff rate varied according to the activity sector, where tourism, retail, and hospitality services were among the main hits, while ICT, e-commerce, and supermarkets were the least affected. Regarding the financial impact of COVID-19, it was associated to the extent of disruption of business operations and the reduced revenues or sales. As to the needed recovery, MSMEs suffer from the absence of public funding, and they hence rely on their own funding like cash or grants. The effect of the crisis on MSMEs is especially severe because of their higher levels of vulnerability and low resilience related to their size. This is particularly alarming considering the role of MSMEs as the economic backbones and main job providers. In order to support MSMEs in overcoming the crisis and its effects, public measures are urgently needed. These include the provisional exemption or suspension of public dues, including tax and social security, incentives for recruiting unemployed youth or fresh graduates, subsidized loans to young entrepreneurs and MSMEs that invest in new technologies, manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and recycling. Also, tax reductions for business angels who invest in startups, and equity funding through the electronic stock exchange platform. To cope with the developments associated to the COVID-19 outspread, the Beirut Chamber has implemented preventive measures and awareness campaigns in collaboration with the Red Cross. The Chamber adapted its working schedules in order to support exporters. The Beirut Chamber raised funds for the Mask for Lebanon campaign to secure 1 million masks free of charge. It also participated in the governmental planning committee to set the disaster risk management plan facing COVID-19. Following the Beirut blast, the Chamber has mobilized a $1 million fund as a contribution to support the recovery of damaged MSMEs. Hence, the Chamber took in charge replacing the broken glass facades of small shops and MSMEs and provided small grants as well. However, due to the extent of the incurred damage and the growing demand for support, the Chamber launched a new platform called Beirut Donation to raise additional funding to assist the remaining MSMEs that were stricken by this disaster. In the same context, the Chamber contracted a consulting firm specialized in loss valuation to assist damaged MSMEs in obtaining due compensation from their insurance companies by assessing the actual value of property damaged or lost as per their insurance claims. Finally, I would like to refer again into the MOU with IFC, which will launch a series of webinars tackling the road to resilient workplaces during COVID-19 and the trauma resulting from the Beirut port blast. These initiatives will stress on the role of employers in addressing mental health of employees and how can employers reconcile these seemingly conflicting goals, ensuring employee productivity and giving employees space to ensure their mental well-being. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Sabra, for your good intervention, and we all for the attendees who are attending this this webinar, they can drop their questions or their idea into the chat box, and we will at the end of each session we will put this question to the speakers. Now we have with us also on the same subject Mrs. Sharon Farrugia, researcher and researcher executive economic and social affairs of Malta Employers Association, and Mrs. Farrugia has a long experience and expertise in employers activities in the Mediterranean and in Malta also. Mrs. Farrugia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will be presenting the case of Malta in times of COVID-19. Like many other countries, in March, the Maltese government have adopted several measures to prevent the spread of COVID amongst the society, some of which obviously have led to major consequences on companies. And here I have listed some causes and effects of what happened. We had the mandatory closure of companies, of some companies, obviously, for example, retail, hairdressers, restaurants, and other companies. These shops could operate behind closed doors. So, for example, delivery service was still allowed. And the government has introduced COVID wage supplement, where the government assists employers in covering the salaries, some of the salary expenses of their employees. We had the bans of mass events, which obviously led to cancellation of bookings, which affected not only the event planning itself, but also companies in marketing and advertising, for example, accommodation, food industry. We had the closure of the airports, which resulted in less tourists, cancellation of booking, hotels, the closure of museums and heritage sites. The closure of schools, which affected, had a direct impact on companies, because parents couldn't go to the place of work, or had to work remotely through teleworking. And for this, the government have issued a scheme to assist parents in staying at home to take care of their children. Vulnerable persons were not allowed to go to work, so we had major issues with finding technical staff. Some of the oldest persons, when I say vulnerable, 65 plus, and those who have a disorder or a disease. So the workplaces were affected with having a lack of technical staff, skilled staff, which couldn't go to work. We had the repatriation of third country nationals and no permit renewals. In Malta, we have a big shortage of skills in labor. So many employers seek to get foreign workers. This was not possible, and is still very restricted, which caused a major gap in many industries. And obviously the unstable period, unmotivated employees, they don't know what's going to happen to their job, low productivity, staggered staff, which creates tension and stress at the place of work. The MEA has carried out a survey. We have carried out 3 surveys. Actually, the latest one was in September, which shows that 81% of employees had a loss in business. So this survey was answered by 250 employees, which for Malta is a good representative sample, and few were the companies that benefited from the situation. So it affected mostly all industries in all sectors. With regards to redundancies, redundancies are still low in Malta. So 81% of companies have not made any redundancies, and this is mostly due to the schemes and the grants provided by the government. We as an association are worried that if financial assistance stops, companies wouldn't have any other way than to lay off people practically. So this is a concern. Some of the solutions and best practices that are being used during COVID, and as we've said in the introduction, will continue to be used. So a lot of people had already adopted these best practices, these solutions, but as we said, it accelerated the process. So many companies had to adapt and fast forward their solutions practically. Some of the companies had to do changes in conditions of work. So some adopted for reduced working week, the use of vacation leave. When that was finished, they had to go to unpaid leave. And some companies had also had to assign different duties to employees. The Department of Labour obviously has to approve every single decision with regards to conditions of work, and we have found good assistance from them and employers. They've introduced 2 helplines. They were there to answer queries, and of course these conditions needs to be updated every 4 weeks. Another solution, which was already in place in many industries, teleworking and different modes of work. A lot of companies have adopted to teleworking arrangements where this is possible, and they have run smoothly. Others who can't telework opted for other solutions, like for example job share, reduced hours. But this is a solution that will stay even post-COVID. In fact, the association is doing a position paper on teleworking and on creating flexibility of creating work-life balance. The setting up of e-commerce platforms, this was a huge leap for Malta. We didn't have a lot of businesses that have e-commerce platforms, like 3% of businesses in Malta had, but we've seen a change due to COVID in all sectors practically, from supermarkets to other shops, clothes shops, for example. Those who had already everything set up in place benefited greatly. Their profits increased, their work increased, because obviously those that did not have the solutions in place had to close down and rebuild their business bit by bit. There were other firms who at the moment it is like seek to adapt or die. So I'm getting this example of a small bakery in St. Julian's. They have a small shop, and in times of COVID, in the peak, they had to close down. They reinvented the idea. They was working with a taxi company, and they were providing meals, healthy meals and they were thriving. So this is an example of a company that benefited actually from COVID. And I'm getting these examples where there is this star, is that these solutions and best practices will continue, obviously, to be adapted, to be adopted post-COVID. We have also focused on local tourism. So we've seen a shift from accommodating foreigners to locals. Hotels and restaurants have introduced weekend deals with very competitive prices. Gozo, Malta's sister island, have increased tourism by a high percentage due to this advertising. And we also had museums which have gone virtual, completely virtual, and introduced memberships, for example. So the profit was still there. Many companies have used the downtime to upgrade their employee skills and to upgrade their agendas. Skilled employees, for example, like I mentioned, the vulnerable, were acting as mentors. So they were still being active in the labor market, and also government have introduced a number of online courses free of charge for the upskilling of employees. Mental health, there is a lot of focus on mental health awareness, the recognition, what is causing at the place of work. We as an association have teamed up with NGOs working on mental health. Employers are offering therapy to their employees, and having informed decisions. So the awareness of mental health. The challenges ahead. COVID is still with us, obviously, and businesses are still very wary of their situation, and the situation might change at any given time, especially if government stops providing funding, or if employees stop turning to work due to quarantine, for example. The survey shows that most companies predict that they need more than a year to recover their business activity to pre-COVID levels.
One more minute, Sharon.
Okay.
Okay.
Depending on how long this is going to take. Commencement of investment projects. 60% of survey respondents have postponed their investment projects. Sustaining the current workforce to avoid redundancies and the closing down of business, like I have already explained. The reclosing of school have opened in October, and teachers' unions, for example, is putting pressure on government to close down the schools due to the increase in the number of cases again, and this will mean that parents will have to telework or cannot. The roles of employers and business support organizations. We have been keeping businesses informed of the latest information through mass mails, through social media. We have created the COVID-19 Employers Handbook. You can access it. I provided the link there. It has all the information that employers need to have, all the schemes, how to access it, all the mitigation measures to be followed by workplaces. We have done webinars on topics related to the pandemic, and we created a number of frequently asked questions on the topics provided over there. And we are also working on a TV program related to COVID-19 topics. We're collecting information, as I said, to test business performance, to test redundancies. We have done 3 surveys so far, followed by focus groups to focus more on sectors and discuss in further detail. And we are collaborating with National Statistics Office. Discussions with different stakeholders, the managing authorities of schemes. We are representatives in the Malta Council for Economic and Social Development Board, where all the social partners and representatives of business support organizations discuss and lobby to government the way forward, the schemes necessary, the assistance to be provided to companies, and participating in webinars and conferences. All this to lobby with government, to lobby to government by presenting research studies and recommendations. We have issued a number of position papers, for example, on teleworking, remote working, and obviously the media to make our voices heard and to support employers as much as we need to. That is everything from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon, for your intervention. And now we will have, maybe we can put, we have some questions. We received some questions from the participants, and but we will go this way. If any one of you, and Ms. Aida, do you have any comments about what our both colleagues from employers organization, what do you have any?
Maybe one, first of all, thank you very much. It was very insightful. And I think that the situation is the same in Tunisia as it was presented by Mr. Sabara and Ms. Farrugia. I think that also coming back to the SDGs, I have noted some of the SDGs that could have been of course, suffered from this pandemic and will continue to suffer, is the SDG 1 about poverty, of course the SDG 2 about hunger, the SDG 3 about health, the SDG 4 about education, the SDG 5, we have noted lots of violence against women in our countries rising, unfortunately, and of course all the matter related to decent work, as it was mentioned, and voila, this was really one of my my thought about what has been presented, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Razaz, are you still with us? I think he is not.
Yes, yes, of course, I am.
Any thoughts about our two colleagues' presentation?
Actually, I wanted to say something. It's a very general comment. I want them and everyone actually participating, whether panelists or attendees, to know that we also are your platform. So if there is anything from the UFM Secretariat side that we can provide, if there are any efforts that you think we could accompany and bring value added into, please feel free to write to me directly. I represent a division, one of 6 divisions in the UFM Secretariat, but even if the initiative or the project or the program that you're working on has to do with, for example, higher education or mobility or social protection or gender equity, you let me know and I'll be very happy to connect you to the right interlocutors in-house. So it's just at the outset to let you know this.
Okay, thank you. Ines, any idea, anything you want to ask?
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed both presentations, a lot of insights, a lot of statistics and facts, and I love that. Actually, what I enjoyed in both presentations is the solution-oriented approach, because we know what's going on and we know that it was a disaster at several levels, but what I like about those presentations is the solution orientation. And I especially loved it when Mr. Rabi talked about, I was taking notes, and he was talking about e-learning among many other interesting things. He was talking about how e-learning is actually important in their approach in Lebanon. And I want to join him and really emphasize on how educating people, and when I say people, I'm talking about employees in companies, I'm talking even about citizens, how educating them and helping them to be, I want to say, and I'm going to talk about this later on, digital ready, like ready to take new jobs, ready to learn more, ready to help governments shift and digitally transform, actually. And I love this approach, how they're trying to put as much as they can education and learning as a priority. I want to also go back to something that Sharon said earlier, and I took a note. Give me a second, I'm gonna find it. Yes, I loved it when she said that there were something like 65%, correct me Sharon if I'm wrong, 65% people who worked remotely during the pandemic are likely to keep this habit. They're like, we want to do this again. It's not over even after the pandemic. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yes. Yes,
yeah, and that's so important. Again, I'm gonna talk about this in a few minutes, and on how some of the habits that occurred, that happened due to COVID-19 are going actually to turn probably in a permanent way of living, way of working, way of learning probably. So yeah, thank you very much for those presentations, Sharon and Rabi. I really enjoyed them.
Sharon, maybe you can the question of Inas, maybe we can answer it at the final of the session. At the end of the webinar, we have a very interactive session. So please prepare the answer for Inas for the final session. We have here two questions. I will put one of them to Mr. Sabra, and the first question is the effects of COVID-19 on employers' performance and productivity, including mental health. Do we have any statistics, any numbers, how things happened inside the companies?
In fact, in my presentation, I mentioned a memorandum of understanding that we recently concluded with IFC of the World Bank.
Yes.
It's called the Road to Resilient Workplaces During COVID-19. This initiative will be launched in November, next November, and will assess particularly MSMEs and women's enterprises about the effects of whether the COVID-19 effects or also the Beirut blast, which was a big catastrophe here in Beirut.
Okay, thank you. I have, maybe we have to move for the third session. And now we have this question about the keywords that the participants have heard from us. And we will have for 2 minutes, and we want to have this question to be put to the participants and to everybody to have an answer on it. What were the keywords that we have heard during this session? Okay, we will have 2 minutes and we will go to the next session. Okay, let's move for the next session. Maybe the participants are not ready to use this tool, and it is taking some time. Okay, we will continue getting the answers, and we will move to the the next session because we are a little bit late and we have to move a little bit faster. The session is, the title of the session is COVID-19 and its impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. We have two speakers, Mrs. Aida Robbana and myself, Hisham Abu Jawdi. Mrs. Aida Robbana will begin with this, with her intervention, and it is about COVID-19 and its impact on the SDG. Mrs. Robbana is the program specialist for SDG integration and innovation into the UN program for the development in Tunisia, I think. Mrs. Robbana, the floor is yours, and please, we are all listening to you.
So thank you very much for having me here again. So, so my presentation will be on how can we engage through the SDGs and having this COVID-19 hitting very hard. I would like first to, of course, remind you of the SDGs that have been signed by 193 countries in 2015, including Tunisia, where I am working in UN. So the SDGs and the Agenda 2030 have been signed in 2015. And lots of companies have already begun to take the lead on the SDGs. So this was, of course, before. Thank you. Before, no, I have a little bit changed in the presentation, but it's okay. So go ahead. I would like to present what have been done before the 2015 is the UN Global Compact is a network to mobilize a global movement of sustainable companies and stakeholders to create the world we want. Which is the thematic of the SDGs. The UN Global Compact supports companies to do business responsibly within 10 principles of human rights, of labor, of good environment, and fighting corruption, and also to take strategic actions to advance on broader societal goals as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, with an emphasis on collaboration and innovation. Next. So the situation during COVID was the following. So there is a drop on the foreign direct investment that is expected to drop by more than 30% in 2020. And based on this track record, the involvement of the private sector is crucial for meeting the SDGs by 2030. And also, we need also to mobilize lots of resources, and lots of resources are still to be channeled towards sustainable development, and the speed also to be found in order to meet the goals in 2030. So actions against COVID at the level of the UN and specifically at the level of the UNDP have been in September 2020, an SDG business forum has been launched, and the private sector global facility has been announced. UNDP, together with the UN Global Compact that I have presented and the International Chamber of Commerce, joined forces with DHL, Microsoft, and Pricewaterhouse to help communities recover better from the pandemic. I remind you that Global Compact is 10,000 company, and the link to the SDG Business Forum will be in my presentation, and how to be part of this private sector global facility that is provided. Also UN agencies have, and specifically UNDP, have spoken about how they are going to partner with private company in their response, and all of them have put a call for more collaboration. So UNX, for example, called for companies, particularly in the pharmaceutical space, to commit to making future COVID-19 therapeutics and vaccine accessible to all. The World Food Programme talks about working with several companies to keep food supply chains moving, and a partnership with Ethiopian Airlines on logistics for all countries that need more food logistics. UNICEF, of course, asked for partnership around supplies, diagnostics, and artificial intelligence to track diseases related to childhood. There is also another initiative that has been shared, is the SDG impact standards, which are a set of practices that organizations can apply to help build a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient world. And these standards will provide common language and best practice guidance for to integrate impact management into business and investment practices. And also the first draft of this SDG impact standards for enterprise is available for public consultation on the UNDP website until December 15, 2020, and I will share, of course, the link for that. There is also something very important during this COVID-19 pandemic to have in mind is the human rights due diligence and COVID-19. So there is also a rapid self-assessment for businesses that has been also launched by UNDP, and that you can find on how ways to transform and also to assess the human rights situation. We have been listening of cases of Malta and of Lebanon, but also in Tunisia, Morocco. We know also that the human rights, as I said, will be hit by this COVID-19. So this due diligence document will give businesses a potential list of actions that allow for rapid evaluation and assessment on what are the impacts of this COVID on human rights, on the situation of decent work as well. And also this is linked, of course, to the listed actions that are based on the human rights treaties, the ILO fundamental conventions, and all the UN documents related to work. So in Tunisia, the situation also has been assessed by UNDP very quickly during the first quarantine period in March, April, and we have done with the related Ministry of Economy a study in the beginning of the pandemic around the assess of the SMEs and recommendation to try to monitor them. We have also launched very quickly a business call to action with Oxfam, our partners in Tunisia, in order to assess also the situation of SMEs and have some enterprises to join in order to lawyer the impact of the COVID. We have also partnered with banks, specifically Al Baraka Bank and the Islamic Development Bank, to try to find ways to finance the SDGs and, of course, some of the activities related to sustainable development and work of the enterprises. And as also it has been mentioned from the beginning, also try to develop digital solutions. With GSMA network. GSMA network is a network of 400 mobile enterprises working on using digital solutions and try to share them widely with the citizens and users. So Business Call to Action is an inclusive global business platform with more than 257 members and present in 73 countries. It has been put in place in Tunisia this year in order to try to strengthen and support the role of the private sector in sustainable development. And also to raise awareness and to equip the private sector with some actions to develop inclusive business, and also to facilitate the public and the private dialogue in the country and support, if possible, technically and strategically, future inclusive businesses. We have also developed a tool. We have also partnered, with Connect, which is the business employer, the second business employer organization in Tunisia, to develop the Miqyas, which is a barometer, a reliable tool to enable decision makers to improve their perception of the business environment. in the country and to monitor the evolution of the state of health of Tunisian SMEs. We have also done a very big advocacy campaign on the law for social and solidarity economy law that is now in place. And also the one for the independent entrepreneurs, because we think that it is very important to develop the ecosystem about independent entrepreneurs in Tunisia. For us, it's very important also to follow up the gender seal and to try to work also a lot with women entrepreneurs, and we are connecting with the employers and the employees working in SMEs, specifically women and young women. And also we are working on the informalization, on getting to put the informal sector into the formal sector. We have just begun, because the informal sector is very important, is going very important in Tunisia, with several entrepreneurs that have lots of problems. And we are trying to link them to the formal sector as much as possible, of course. And finally, I will finish my presentation, sorry, with a quote also from Mr. Guterres, who says, "I challenge all of you," talking to the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and of all our business organization, to take more ambitious and comprehensive action across your operations and value chains. I think that we will have to work all together more on this preparedness and also in having in mind always the human rights situation of the entrepreneurs, of course, of the employers, and also of the employees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Aida, for your intervention. It was very quick and very informative, and with a lot of ideas and concepts to deal with. Now, I will give the floor to myself. I am an expert in sustainable development and the labor market and private sector activities. I am an independent consultant. I worked before for the ILO and for employers organization at the Mediterranean and Lebanese level and the Arab region level. I will share my screen with you.
I will just say one word, Hisham, to present you. I would say that more than 15 years ago, we used to work together when you were expert for BUSINESSMED and advice.
Yes, I was with BUSINESSMED when Mr. Jacques Sarraf was the president, and before it was when our Turkish colleagues, they were presiding over BUSINESSMED, and I was with them, and we BUSINESSMED, for sure, we were the leading employers organization representing all the Mediterranean employers and private sector in as I remember, it was the Sustainable Development Committee in the Mediterranean. It was related to UNEP, and we took the lead in this way for 3 years until 2008. We had this seat as BUSINESSMED, and I am very happy. And I am very happy to return to BUSINESSMED and to be with BUSINESSMED and to be with all of you, Jihan. And thank you for the opportunity.
Just a reminder that you wrote the first study for BUSINESSMED on Barcelona process and on the Mare Nostrum.
Yes, and the initiative 2020 for depolluting the Mediterranean, we discussed, we were part in discussing this initiative, this European initiative. And we had a very good impact, and also we made it was the first time that the private sector and the employer organization meet in Cairo. We had 13 or 14 employers organization, and we met in Cairo for this initiative in 2012. In I think 2007 in November 2007, like this, I remember, long time ago. Okay, you will let me, Jihan, make my.
You cannot present yourself very well, so I have to do it. You're part of BUSINESSMED family, so thank you, Hisham.
Thank you, Jihan. Thank you for you. Thanks for everybody. You have to give me the tool to present, to put my presentation. Okay. My presentation is about the private. I will I will move the clock to be fair with myself and with you. The private sector role in addressing the challenges imposed by COVID-19. This is the title of my presentation. First of all, the situation after the shock. Unfortunately, the private sector at the first instant of the shock, they did not take it as serious as it should be. And this is why we had some disastrous consequences at the level of the economies and the private sector activities itself. And then the response, it became by a survival mode. How to maintain our activities and how the employers organization, they should to maintain everything. The governments now are subsidizing the economic activity directly and indirectly, and this is a big question to the private sector to address, to the employer organization to address, how we can get out of, because subsidizing will make, it has a positive effect and a negative effect. Digitization imposed itself with all its positive and negative factors also. And this also a question that we have to address. And digitization imposed itself very quickly. In 4 months, we made, the private sector made a big shift in how we are working internally as companies and also as employers organization. What have meant to be done in 5 to 10 years, it was implemented in 5 months. The major question affecting any private sector planning now and at the level of companies, at the level of employers organization are 3 questions. When the pandemic COVID-19 will end, and this is a big question because they cannot they cannot plan for the future. Which economic activities will stop existing? And this also a major decisive question, because businessmen are thinking now, is my economic activity will end, will stop, it will not survive, how we will do? And what will be the economic system after the pandemic? Are we still, we will still live with the same economic system, with the same financial system, with the same monetary system? How things will be done? If we want to address the challenge from PS perspective, first of all, we have to take some points into consideration. One, not all challenges are conform due to the condition in each country. Yes, from a general view, we can see that the challenges are the same, but in reality, when we will put these challenges into at the level of country, we will see that these challenges are not the same. Second big platform that we have to talk about is difference between soft and work and hard work. Soft work, I think 65%, as Sharon said, or maybe Ines will be speaking about later on. we had the soft work we have handled with digitization. Hard work, how we can do it? It's a big question. It is something that is challenging every morning. In the Mediterranean area, the SMEs form 90% of the total number of companies and constitute up to 70 and 80% of the total economic activity. These MSMEs, they are the most affected by the COVID-19. They do not have the capacity to respond very actively and very constructive in this way. And this is why we had seen many MSMEs shut down. And we have to look to take this into consideration when we are planning and thinking about, and the employers' organization, they will always see this into their perspective. We should not. We should always remember that the role of the private sector is to boost the growth, enlarge the economy, create new jobs, and make profit. This should be. This is the main vehicle for the private sector to move on. The question, the answer that I have put is keep the sustainability. We have to keep the sustainability so as we will keep the private sector moving. First of all, we have to coexist with the pandemic. Second is to rethink the model and out of the box. We should not continue on a survival mode. We should rethink the model, and we should rethink it very fast. We should rethink it into positive thinking. We should not go out. We should not. The easiest thing is to shut down the company or to get rid from our employee. This is not a positive way. We should think how to enlarge and how to make from these challenges an opportunity, and it is a time of opportunities now to make the changes that we are afraid to do before. Invention and creativity. We have to make new products, new activities, new tools. We have to introduce them now and in this moment. We have to invest. The private sector should invest, and employers' organizations should push the private sector to invest in research and development. This is the only way to find the real answer to the challenge and to respond positively. And when we are rethinking and we making the invention and making this invest in R&D, we should always take into consideration the sustainable development goals into our mind, so we will be guiding ourselves into the heart of the SDG. We should share our expertise and not try reinventing the wheel, and this will be a major way that we can get out of these challenges and of these bad consequences and negative consequences. We have to build the alliances. Employers' organizations, they should push for building alliances now at the level of sectors, at the level of companies, and at the level of employers' organizations themselves. We should see synergy and complementary is the way to get out from the challenges and from the situation we are living now. Less competition, more cooperation. This is the way. This is the base for how work should be done. And because what we have seen till now is that people are tending for more cooperation and for more help and not for more competition. And we have saw this at the level of the different economic activities and at the different level and at the different companies. We have to push for public partnership, and this is the horse for making growth. we have not to ask for subsidies. The private sector should ask for facilitating the measures, not asking for subsidies, because we cannot later on get out of the subsidies, and we will make it will be it will have a very bad impact at the long run. We have to abide by the green and blue economy rules, and it is easier now to do it because we have less competitiveness, less challenges at the level of economic competitiveness, and we can do it, and it is the time, it is an opportunity to do it. And we should reorganize the sectors, the companies, and the employers' organization on social responsibility scheme, and keep the safety and health of the workplace and the employee. And this is very important now, because we still have 1.5 years before we will be, we will have a real remedies for the COVID-19, and maybe not before this 1.5 years, COVID-19 will be transformed into a sickness, and we will get out from the pandemic version. And this 1.5 years, it will be very crucial for the life of our employees and the workplace itself. Finally, what I will say is, it is a time of war. Everybody is speaking about we are a war against COVID. In times of war, technologies and new models flourish, and we have seen all of this during war times. And the private sector has always took the lead in during this time of war. And now it is the time for the private sector to take this lead, and to move the economies, and to boost the development, and to boost the growth, and to lead the government, not letting the government only being the vehicle that will make this the changes. The private sector should be the vehicle to make these changes, and to respond positively for these challenges. Thank you for your listening. This is what I have, I want to say about the private sector role, and how the private sector and employers organizations, they should think during and behave during this period of time. Thank you very much. Okay, can we go now for several minutes for some interaction about the session that Mrs. Aida and me were intervening in this, and I want to begin with Jihan this time. Jihan, what are your thoughts about what Mrs. Aida and my presentation in few minutes, in 1 to 2 minutes, please, Jihan?
Okay, 1 to 2 minutes. It will not be easy because I have so many issues.
You can keep it for the last session, Jihan. Don't worry. Okay, now we want some direct and very fast idea.
I know I have to give you the floor, Hisham, but I sometimes want to interact. So with this slide, I didn't see a word, 2 words, which are very, very important. When you say mental health, you forget also the culture, because you have different culture, you have a problem with a culture, and you also forget the word in this slide in terms of cooperation. And you insisted about it, Hisham, and this is very important, and this is why we are working and having this webinar. We, as you said, we need less competition and more cooperation. And this is what we missed, and this is why we missed this Barcelona process, because each country is working in her own way with with different kind of donors from all over the world, as UNDP, as European Commission, as World Bank. But usually what we can see in these countries, they don't do a cooperation together. And this is very important because they see a lot of competition. For example, when you say l'accord d'Agadir agreement, you cannot see these Maghreb countries united together to try to find a way to find solution together. Each one is trying to find his own solution, and at the end, we arrive to this kind of problem. We don't have union between our countries. So this kind of webinar is showing that we can discuss together, we can share the know-how, we can find any solution. I can see that Sharon gives some solution that made in Malta, but we see the same problem also in Lebanon. It's not exactly the same problem, but at the end, the same problem is social and economic problem. So maybe we can talk about it later, but it's the second webinar. No one talked about social dialogue, what you are doing together as employee and employees with your government and how you raise your voice.
Yes, yes. Indeed, it is right what you have said. And Mr. Sabra, what do you think about all the role of the private sector in this war situation?
Allow me first, Hisham, to thank you and Aida for your comprehensive presentations. We got a lot of ideas about your thoughts and recommendations. I have two major comments. First, regarding the United Nations SDGs. I think that we cannot speak about fighting poverty, enhancing gender equity, decent work, and all of this without having economic growth. And this is a key issue. We are facing in Lebanon a major economic crisis, and this has an effect on all SDGs, on all levels of the 17 pillars. We need to work for helping MSMEs enhance their resilience and survive. Otherwise, it will be illogical really to speak about all of these SDGs. There need to be like an international rescue plan or a plan B, whereas in such a kind of crisis, there should be a fund, an international fund that helps countries overcome the crisis. You know that countries like France, like the United States, put billions of dollars or euros to support their companies, MSMEs, while in our region, nothing. Here is the second issue about the Euro-Mediterranean cooperation. We speak a lot about EuroMed and the cooperation, but in fact, we see a small array of projects or initiatives scattered here and there, but there is no central plan from the EU precisely in order to support the region and the countries in the south. You know that our region has been suffering for years from political instability and the effects on economy, etc., which made our MSMEs very vulnerable to crisis. This is a major issue, and this is here the role of the EU, UFN, BUSINESSMED at a lesser extent, but there should be funds allocated for our countries to overcome crisis. at the national level, I don't think that, if I take the example of Lebanon, our government has no money to support enterprises or MSMEs. All we are looking for are exemptions from taxes, dues, etc., just for this period in order for our companies to overcome the crisis and survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabra. Mr. Razaz, I think Mr. Sabra put some challenges in front of the union in 1 minute, mostly 2 minutes. Can you answer some of these questions that we really want to hear about it, or you keep a big intervention for the last session?
Well, I wouldn't want to give an answer now before consulting also my colleagues and the other think tanks in-house. It's very easy to come forward and make promises or to say that we will do this or we will act upon this. But this is not the way we really work. I take everything recommended today very attentively. I took note of everything. And this is the good news of such webinars, that they are not standalone or a one-off sort of webinar. We take them very seriously because it's the first in a series of webinars, and the outcomes, the takeaways from each of these webinars are things that we study in-house very diligently to see how we can mobilize our capacities and our resources towards one or two of the thematics proposed by the participants. So I am in the note-taking mood, and the reflection will be done in-house collectively with my colleagues when I convey to them what has been discussed today. And I'll be very happy to share this with you in the second webinar in this series.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Razaz. Sharon, what are your thoughts about the presentation, the ideas that we have put me and Mrs. Aida in front of you?
Yes, I have a couple of points. I agree with what Jihan has said about the public-private partnership. I think it's not time to compete, but to join forces. Social dialogue is very strong in Malta, maybe due to the size of the island. Whenever we discuss poverty, when we mention the SDGs, there is poverty, there is education, the culture. It's not going to affect the society only, but it's going to affect the workplace. And this is something it's something that you mentioned, recognizing the social responsibility, having healthy employees, which reflects obviously on the productivity, on the motivation, having safe places, safe workplaces. Something that we wanted to mention as well was facilitating measures, but not subsidies. I think you've mentioned it, and I wanted to make a point on it. We, as the Malta Employers Association, have pushed for moratoriums from bank, from reduction in VAT, which we got from our government due to the strong economy maybe of the island. But we have also pushed for grants to set up remote offices, to have e-learning for employees to build e-learning platforms. We think that having sustainability of all these things to go post-COVID is very important. And one last point that I wanted to mention is that we're adapting to change and we're moving forward. So re-engineering our business strategies, how to operate, how to move from face-to-face courses to online or blended courses. It's the way forward, and I think businesses need to embrace this change.
Thank you, Sharon. Ines, in 2 minutes, the floor will be yours, but please in 1 minute.
Oh, you're very hard.
Or I will give you the floor, so you will present. You will have your presentation, and we will keep your thoughts about my intervention and that of Mrs. Aida to the end. And we prefer to do this, so you will get your presentation, and we will move to right on after your presentation to the full and general discussion about.
All right. So I have 1 minute, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, of course, those presentations were absolutely amazing. I took a lot of notes. You'll be surprised to see how many notes and statistics I wrote down, because there's a lot of information, and that's very interesting. But I want to go back to one main point that kept my attention, which is when you talked about that people were not taking seriously enough the pandemic, and they downplayed it, and we saw even developed economies who downplayed the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. It cost them so much, so many lives, and economic loss as well. So I want to take just a very simple example very quickly. I had a few MBA classes like a few weeks ago, and among my students, people, you know, there are business owners and decision makers and even policy makers in this class, and they were like, when do you think, Professor, when do you think this COVID-19 thing will end? This was a very current question. And then my answer was, why do you want to know? Why is it so important for you guys? Why do you want to have this exact information? You know, nobody has the answer. And then I was surprised to have this answer. And they were like, we want to go back to normal, to how we used to be before, as soon as possible. And these are decision makers, policy makers, and CEOs among the students. And I was like, whoa, you need to stop for a second. You want to go back to normal? Really? So this was surprising. Yes, yes. Because I feel like they're not aware that we're not going back to that normal anytime soon. So I was surprised because they're not thinking, they're not seeing it the right way. They're not aware that they need to prepare for this kind of new normal. We're not going back. It's just human nature. We want to go back to how things used to be. But when you are a policymaker or a business owner or decision maker, that's really terrible. You are waiting to go back to, meaning using the same tools, having the same mindset, doing business as usual. This is what it means, which is actually not possible.
Your idea is very bright now and it's very clear. We are living with this. And now we will move for our last but not least speaker, and the title of this session is The Role of Digital Tools in the Past COVID-19 Recovery Plans. And our speaker is Mrs. Ines Nasri. Mrs. Ines Nasri is the founder and manager of a web-powered digital agency. And she is a pioneer and expert for more than 10 years in digital strategies and innovation. Maybe we can find in the presentation of Mrs. Nasri, we can find some solutions, some new ideas, some ways to deal with the future and with the current situation. And I believe we should not think too much about the future in the long run. We should think about the future in the short run and in the current time now, how we could, because maybe the time for COVID, it will last for 1 to 2 years from now. Mrs. Nasri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just allow me to share my screen. All right, just give me a second. Yeah, I think we're good to go. Give me a second. Okay. Are we good? Do you see it full screen? Everything is fine? Cool. Okay. So since we only have 10 minutes, I'm going to be straightforward, and I want to start this presentation with this kind of photo. So this is the actual situation. We know that COVID-19 is impacting the economy, is impacting almost every single aspect of our lives. But what I want to focus on in this presentation is what comes here. I don't know if you see my mouse. It's just the last step. Here, what comes after? What comes after, and what happens beyond COVID-19? Because I get this question all the time, and there are many, many experts, many studies, many speculations, many ideas about what happens beyond COVID-19. This is kind of a billion-dollar question, and nobody has the answer. But I want to try to think with you actually, and try to guess and what this next COVID-19 world might look like. So I want to ask you this very quick question. What do you think is the percentage of consumers that are not going back to normal after the pandemic is over? And by not going back to normal, I mean in their buying priorities, in their way of shopping, whether they're going to go to shops again, are they going to keep buying online? And when it comes to remote work as well, what do you think the percentage might be? Let me go ahead and see in the chat.
You give us the answer, Ines.
Yeah, I see people, I see something like 30% or something. So actually the answer, it probably is going to be surprising. And this is according to one of the, to Ernst & Young Future Consumer Index. This is something that you can find online. If you want me to share it with you, I will. So we're talking almost about 70% of consumers that are not going back to their usual habits. And what it means is that there is a huge change in the way they consume. And it means that there is a huge change that needs to be done on the other side by companies to be able to serve those customers with those new habits. I want to share with you another interesting, actually, statistic, and this is by Kate Lister, who is the president of Global Workplace Analytics. And basically what she says is that almost, let's say, between 25 and 30% of the workforce will be working from home multiple days a week by the end of 2021, meaning at least one day a week by 2021. And my feeling is that, I mean, we can, if we had more time, I can share so many more things, but basically the main idea is that I feel like we kind of released a genie out of a bottle and it's not likely to go back. We learned how to work remotely and enjoy the good aspects, of course, of working remotely. And we also discovered the bad aspects of that. And we knew how to buy online, and we kind of tasted what it looks like and so many other behaviors. And some changes are actually here to change, are here to stay. And this is why when I talked earlier about students, MBA students that were like, when are we going to go back to normal so that we go back to doing business the same thing? I was worried because some of the changes are here to stay. They're not going back right after COVID-19. And like I said, some of those changes are related to shopping habits, work habits, and learning habits, and so much more. So that's why absolutely urgent action is needed. And this is why I liked it when I believe it was Aida who quoted the UN's General Secretary when he said you need to be ambitious, and being ambitious needs decision makers and business owners to be bold, to be decisive, and act early, act urgently. Why? Because this thing is not going to go away soon. It's not just like it was a parenthesis in human history, and that after that we're going back immediately to where we were. There are some changes that are here to stay, and businesses and companies and even countries need to be aware of that and need to be ready. And this part of the solution is actually accelerating digital transformation. This is my deepest belief. We need to go through this digital transformation, not only go, but accelerate it and succeed in it. And this is a huge challenge in itself. We actually need to reach the next normal sooner. I feel like there are at least around me, many business owners in different countries, actually, with many friends around the world who are afraid of this normal, of this next normal. Actually, what you need to do is to go there sooner, so that you're gonna be the winner, and that you're gonna be the company that is going to have to satisfy the new expectations of the new customers. And I want to just make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to digital transformation. So this is how I usually define digital transformation, and I want to share this definition with you very quickly. And so digital transformation refers to the continuous and cyclic process for any organization. And when I say organization, I mean, of course, companies, businesses, but also governments and even countries. And if we push the limit of this definition, I can say even individuals, you know, let's say, for instance, parents. Today's parents need to be digitally aware. We cannot do parenting today, and especially in the COVID-19 era, the same way we used to parent 20 or 30 years ago. So my belief is digital transformation is not something that is related to businesses. The concept is really wider and larger. It goes from the individual level to countries and cultures. So that process aims to integrate digital technologies into all of its activities, if we're talking about a company, actually. And when I say fully integrate, and I want to emphasize on that, we're not talking about buying software, ERP, or digital tools, not even about training people on how to use those tools. We're talking about digital culture also. We're talking about digital awareness. We're talking about digital readiness. We can talk about this maybe later or in another opportunity. So the aim of all that is to sustain economic efficiency. We're not digitally transforming companies or ourselves or countries just for the sake of it. We're doing this to become more economically efficient and grow, actually, and expand. So when we talk about digital transformation, like you said, Hisham, in your presentation, I loved it because we share this way of seeing digital transformation. We actually challenge the business model. And this is one of the issues that I'm seeing in small businesses. We want to stick to our old business model because it's safer, of course, and this is the way we know how to make business and how to bring income in the company. So the idea is to challenge this business model and find new ways of bringing income to the company and having new income streams. For instance, very quickly, if we used to sell a product, probably we need to sell online the service that goes with it. Probably we'll need to train people how to use it. Probably we need to educate people we need to create new income streams that align with the new customers, with new digitized customers. And last but not least, this digital transformation needs to be customer centric. And this thing applies to companies, of course, to be customer centric, but also it applies to governments. And the customer would be actually your citizen. It needs to be customer centric. For instance, we're going toward smart cities, right? It's going to happen one day or another. The concept of smart cities, successful, I want to say, smart cities are going to be citizen centric and take care of their mental health and happiness of their citizens. I mean, this is another topic. We can probably talk about it another day. And one of the most important things is to work on people digital readiness. And it applies to companies because if you want to transform and take a huge advantage of those technologies and the actual amazing context, actually, because there's a lot of change going on and people are ready, more ready than years before to consume technology, to use things online. And this is actually a huge opportunity. Unfortunately, it was brought to us by a pandemic, okay? But still, it's an opportunity for companies and I want to say even countries who did not probably take advantage of the Industrial Revolution to take advantage of this technological revolution and upskill their people, reskill probably, and reskilling is needed because some of the jobs are going to disappear. And I see all the time this conversation going on that AI and technologies are going to destroy jobs, which is absolutely true. We're not going to deny it. But the good news is that there are other jobs that are going to be created, one, and two, this happened already in the past with the Industrial Revolution decades ago. Some jobs were lost, but some other jobs were created, and this is just how things are going. And countries and companies who are going to understand that, the sooner they understand that, the more they're going to take advantage of this situation, and they're going to benefit for their citizens. Now, I want to emphasize, really insist on how acquiring digital skills can be important for companies. It's vital. And I sometimes, receive remarks from my students saying that, well, training people is costly and some small businesses cannot afford it. We need help from the government and stuff like that. And I loved it. I think it was you, Hisham, who said we don't need to rely all the time on governments and on government's help. And I do totally agree with that. Because actually every single company, if we look closer at the people who are working in those companies, we actually have a pool of skills of potential trainers and coaches. So we already have those people. All we need to do is turn them into trainers so that, people train each other, and there's a cohesion, and there's a collaboration, and there's like a one vision. Everyone is going to be aligned to one vision, which is transforming this company and winning, actually, not just surviving, because people and companies whose goal is to survive are not likely to survive. Actually, you need to expand, not just shrink and try to go through this pandemic. Okay, so I will never ever insist enough on acquiring digital skills, on transforming our actual companies into learning companies. We test new concepts. Some of them are going to fail, but that's fine. That's fine if we fail, and we're gonna go ahead and try new things until we find the thing that's gonna become our next new income stream and next bestseller probably. So what is happening right now is that there's huge digital skills shortage around the world. It's not specific to any country, and this is not like a consequence of COVID-19. So this thing was meant to happen one day or another. The thing is that COVID-19 accelerated that, and we are having digital skills shortage right now. So any country will understand that and will upskill people and equip them with new digital skills are gonna take advantage from this situation, actually, and is going to benefit hugely from this digital skills shortage. I wanna end. I don't know if we're close or far from the 10 minutes limit. Can you tell me, Hisham?
Yeah, you have bypassed the 10 minutes, but you have 1 minute to conclude, Ines.
All right. So yeah, I'm gonna conclude then right away. I actually think that we need, and when I say we, people and companies and even governments, to think digital first. Think digital first if it's at the personal level, and this is what I'm doing. Can I do this thing online before trying to do it in person due to the COVID-19 thing? And if I'm a company, can I deliver services? Can I do anything to have more income online? So you need to think digital first and not to be afraid of learning and not to be afraid of failing. And then in short, and I will really end with this slide, for me, the COVID-19 recovery plan will definitely be digital. We can talk about this for an hour, but to keep it short, COVID-19 recovery will definitely will be digital for me. And if you want to keep the conversation going after this amazing event, I'll be happy to answer questions and connect with anyone who's interested in this topic through LinkedIn. Thank you very, very much. And sorry for bypassing the 10 minutes rule. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ines, for your intervention. It was a very digital. I'm now thinking about Star Wars. You moved us to the future, to the far future, little bit. But I think the future is now between our hands. And I have one question for you, Ines, and I will let myself ask you this question. Maybe we can put the keyword question. I'm talking to the IT support. We can put the question, and we can move on our discussion when the question is on the screen. It will. We can make the same the two things together. My question, Ines, is all soft work we can handle with digital solution. Hard work how we can solve it. And it is a question that it's taking all the scene now in the world. Do you have any answer for how to handle hard work? Hard work, I am talking about labor force, handwork, how we can solve this. If I want to make a table, I cannot make a table when I am behind my desk playing with my screen. I have to make a table. How we can do it?
Yeah. So my question before answering is, why would you like to digitize everything? The aim of digitally transforming companies is not to just simply digitize everything. It's actually to take advantage of those technologies. And when it comes to when you say what you call hard work, is actually gonna be impacted in the future, and it's already being impacted by AI. And artificial intelligence is a technology that actually changes any industry, deeply changes any industry it enters. So some of the hard work, what you call hard work, is gonna be, some of it is gonna be automated, some of it is gonna be actually transformed. For instance, I want to give you an example. If you tell me if I have a few minutes to say that. So I have a friend working in a huge law firm in downtown Los Angeles, and this guy is he's a senior lawyer, and he employs junior lawyers to look for similar, like if he has a case, those junior lawyers' job is to look for similar cases. Okay, they go back to cases and they have huge databases, and they pick the similar cases that are going to help him defend his client. So what is happening, and this happened before the pandemic, like by February. So what he's telling me, he is investing in a huge AI system. And the system actually, what does it do? You actually enter the case elements, and this AI brings up similar cases, and it goes and does the research. So what's happening is that those people, those junior lawyers, are not, he's not hiring them anymore because their job changed. So when you say that soft workers are probably going to work online, they're not only going to work online, their job is transformed, is changed, and some of their jobs are going to be disappear simply, even though they're not hard work. This is one thing. And one second element to answer, and I hope I am answering your question, is that some of the work that is what I like to call creative work, for instance, handicraft and things that machines don't do, where there is a cultural value added and things like that, are not going to be automated because the human touch in this work is not replaceable. You see what I mean? So we're not looking to automatize it.
Ines, we got your idea, but I want to listen to Mr. Sabra and Mrs. Sharon for Mrs. Sharon, and I will begin with Mrs. Sharon. Mrs. Sharon, tell me, are the SMEs ready to cope with these challenges now, or where is the situation now?
So when COVID happened, like we were saying, no, most companies were not ready. That I have to admit, not even us as an association, we weren't ready, so we were shocked. However, companies are understanding that having the skills to survive and thrive in the new normal is the way to go. Companies will have a competitive advantage over others who remains to stay the same. So companies who do not change their practices, who do not change their visions, their culture, their mindset, who are not digital ready, who are not able to educate, reskill their workforce, will have a competitive disadvantage over others. So that is pure simple. That's my idea.
Mr. Sabra, what do you think?
Well,
I really want your thoughts.
yeah.
1-2 minutes of your thoughts.
I will give you more. I would like first to thank Ines for her very interesting presentation. I will comment on it later, but replying to your thoughts, Hisham, regarding the tactile or handy professions, you are right. You're right. If we take the example of Lebanon or perhaps the South region, handicrafts, our economic sectors. If you look, if you take the example of Lebanon, for instance, you have the hospitality services, hotels, restaurants, and tourism is a major sector in Lebanon, as you well know. So I am not sure that digital transformation would be so easy in our region. We aspire for digital transformation for the future. But in Lebanon, during the crisis, we anticipated that I will speak a bit about our experience at the Chamber of Beirut. We have launched 5 years ago a plan to transform our services into online services. And this allowed us to overcome this critical period we had over the last year compared to the other chambers or business associations, because we had these online services on our website that helped our members do their services at a level of 50%. But because we don't have an e-government law in Lebanon, we need electronic signature, and all the related blockchains are not ready for Lebanon. So we did our homework, we did our job, but it is not completed at the governmental national level. I think that digital transformation is the future. And in fact, I have a daughter studying, which started studying at ESCP Business School in Paris. Her focus is digital transformation. Now it's the future. I've read a lot about, because I was curious to know what's my daughter doing. I think that we will be all compelled to go digital because this is the future, but the transition in our region would not be easy. Thank you.
Okay. I will ask Jihan, Mrs. Boutiba, what we will lose on the level of social and human interaction. Especially we are talking in societies in the South Mediterranean countries where social relations, human relations are, these bonds are still very solid in our region. What we will lose in getting into this digitization time and this full digitization?
I'm so sorry if I will not take 1 minute. I have so many things to share. I just got a question yesterday from my partner, who is the Secretary General of Trade Unions. And he got the same question from the employees, the trade unions from the South region. And they were asking him, are the employers having people fired because justifying this COVID-19? This is a good question, actually. So we are pointed as employers organization. Are we taking this opportunity of COVID-19 to fire some people? Actually, I cannot answer to this question because we don't know what's happening exactly in these companies, and they're really losing the jobs. But what I can answer, and I take back to the idea of Rabih and Ines, is when you talk about, yes, our governments, our companies are already working on digital tools. But the problem is that our government are not following. So when you work on digital tools, for example, when you go to the bank and ask, yes, I have a digital signature. No, our laws are not following this digital transformation. So mainly, indeed, we work on digital for years, but in terms of Zoom webinars. So, but in terms of legal paper, our government are not following. So that's why we get back to the social dialogue. And this dialogue should be with the social partners, which is private sector and employees at the beginning, which is a bipartite dialogue, and then get back to the tripartite one and involve the government in order to listen to our voice and to check how they can change all these measures, all this law in our southern country, which is now moving on in the European countries. You can see that everything is digitalized, and all the information, even now in the European Commission grants, we can see that we had a webinar last week. They will use a new platform, which is called OPSIS. Everything will be digitalized, even the signature of the contract of the European Commission. So we have no other choice rather than following this digital information. So now I'll just get back to another thing that Ines didn't raise. It's the business with digital. How you are preparing the business and the B2Bs, and how well our employers organization do some international business together. And then we get back for the tool we are working in, which is the business country desk. And this is a tool we are working on for 15 years, but now we have the funds to create this tool. This tool is the business to business online. And it was, we were working on it before the pandemic. So we mainly prepared this digital B2Bs, this digital meeting between the EuroMed region, and we know that most of the countries are having bilateral investment, FDIs together. So this is very important for the private sector in terms of digitalization to do the business to business online. We have to get, as Ines said, it's the new normal actually to have this business online and to work on this business online and to have our meeting, for example, as the Lebanese organization or as a Lebanese companies, you have a meeting with Chinese, it's online. But now our government have to follow what we are bringing as legal, because this is very important. If you don't have our legalization and our laws following what we are doing in this new normal world in digital after the pandemic, nothing will be done correctly. So I will not take so much time on it, but this business country desk platform, I insist on it. It will be another webinar, and it will be launched also during the trade UFM event.
Mrs. Aida excused herself because she has a meeting at 1, and we are little bit because we are late little bit on this, and Mrs. Robbana excused herself and said she is ready to answer any written question from the attendees if we will send her this question, and she will answer it directly to our participant. Mr. Razzaz, I want your general opinion about all this digitization question. Really, it's
no, I mean,
and what UFM can and what Europe can help us make this transformation in our South Mediterranean case. Or how is Europe also is working on this level? And I don't know, because I had many friends in Europe that also they were a little bit not conforming with this digitization life now.
Okay, I think Ms. Masri already mentioned something about the digital preparedness or readiness. Last year, we held the first UFM conference fully dedicated to digital transformation. It was done in Estonia, because as you would know, Estonia is leading a cutting-edge initiative in adopting this transformation on board. And the idea was to learn from their experience vis-a-vis stakeholders from the southern and eastern Mediterranean. And as a concrete follow-up to this first conference, we have programmed an e-governance technical training that will be provided by the Estonian experts, facilitated technically and financially through our partnership with GIZ, BMZ, the German Development Cooperation, and with the logistical support of the UFM Secretariat. So this triangular form or modality of cooperation, I think, is very conducive to a real transformation in the region. Of course, should the political will and vision be there. No, I must say that this should be the first of a series of workshop and technical trainings exactly to help countries from the south and the east to start slowly but surely integrating this digital mindset into the culture of doing business and even the culture of governance. As some of you mentioned, it's not always easy, it can be costly. You need a digital infrastructure in place, you need the digital skills, and some of you already pointed out the serious digital skill shortage in the region. But again, everything starts with a step, no? And countries need to think of this not as a cost, but in terms of the return on investment in digitalization, because I insist it's no longer a matter of choice, it's a matter of fact.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Razzaz. We have some questions from the attendees, and I think I will ask them into, we will have 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to make our general discussion and to go back to the main topic of this webinar, the role of employers and business association in shaping the new normal. And I want to get into this general question now, and some of these questions that our participants said. I want to ask a question. I want to ask Mr. Sabra. Mr. Sabra, you said that your programs, you had many programs in the Chamber of Commerce, and I know this. How did you manage to make these programs still going on? What was, are these programs are still going on or not? Your microphone, Rabia. Yes.
In fact, we have a lot of initiatives. Are you speaking about training programs or projects or?
You have mentioned many programs. Are these many programs and initiatives? Are they still that are before the COVID? Are these still going on, or they stopped somewhere?
Let me speak about EBSOMED.
Yes.
EBSOMED is a project with BUSINESSMED, which started years ago, and we had a lot of meetings, events that took place in the past. The last one was in Malta, I guess. It was a nice opportunity to visit Malta and see this amazing country. So it's true that, but now EBSOMED is still going on, but in a different way, through the net, online meetings. But as Ines mentioned, we're looking for the COVID to pass and to go back to our normal life. And our subconscious in us, we wish, we aspire to going back to normal, despite the constraints and despite the perhaps physical constraints and all of this. But I think that once a vaccine is discovered and disseminated, people are eager to go back to, they will do their best to travel and see each other and meet again. This fear of, you know, is transitional. I guess it will, we are eager to go back to this life. Now, there are also other projects in which we are partners, ENI CBC projects, to which we postulated 2 years ago and which will be launched now. One of which concerns training of needs, youth and gender in port logistics activities. Okay, it will start on an online basis, but there is a budget assigned for the second or third year, counting on travels and events and conferences that might take place in other countries. Now, we had a bad impact on training. We have a training center at the chamber whereby we used to get star trainers to provide specific trainings to our member companies. Now, the training center is empty. We have launched a series of online trainings, but we did not succeed to launch, you know, anyone, perhaps also because we have a very severe crisis, economic and financial crisis, whereby our companies and MSMEs are not looking for training for the meantime. They are just looking to pass the crisis and stay alive and keep their employees.
We have a question here from participants. And what about the cost of digitization? There is some sectors where digitization is not possible. What is going to happen to these sectors? How employers' organization will respond to the sectors where there is no way for digitization? And I want to hear this from Sharon and from Mr. Razaz. And so how we will respond to what we will say, what we will tell the sectors that they cannot digitize. What is the cost of digitization? Mr. Razaz. Mr. Razaz, Muhammad, you are with us? Hello? Sharon, okay, Mr. Razaz, maybe he's not. Sharon, what do you think?
Maybe I can start.
Yes.
When I heard Jihen and Rabih talking about digitalization and e-governance, I take it for granted sometimes that in Malta we have e-governance. We had it for a long time. Most of our services are digital. So if the e-invoicing, for example, is obligatory by law. Companies cannot do paper invoicing. All our health certificates can be accessed online. The inland revenue, the taxation, everything has to be paid online. So being part of the EU and having a government that is pushing for digital, companies have to adapt and they have no other way. Practically, it was forced on us.
They have to adapt, or they will die. This is what you are telling us.
Exactly, or they will be against the law. So that is part of the EU and being digital.
But don't you think it is too early to say this? Did we rethink the model rightfully now, in a good way, in deepness? Are we rethinking the model in a way that it will be more constructive, not to put them in, not to push them to the wall and say them, you have to change or you will die? Is it not too early to say this?
For Maltese companies, in order to keep on operating, it is part of national law. So, for example, e-invoicing, they can't do without. Of course, the government has pushed for reskilling the labor market and society. We, as a business support organization, we offer training to reskill and to, for example, partner. You've mentioned public-private partnership. We are constantly working with academia and research institutions, for example, on curriculum to address the industry needs. So I think it's all an idea of rethinking and how to survive in the new normal, really. Of course, the cost of digitization can be costly with regards to hardware, with regards to the reskilling. We know that there is a major labor market shortage when it comes to digital skills, but we keep on trying, and we will get there.
And I attended a webinar on tourism in the Mediterranean region, and I think they are still rethinking all the model. Yani it's not the time to give final solution now and to say, they are trying to find new ways of tourism, how, and some of them is digital tourism. Yani they are trying to put in some archaeological sites that you will enter this in a way, but also they are finding new ways to. Yani one idea was and now we are imposing this in all countries, that social distance. The restaurant said in one country that we should not divide our space into two. We should multiple our space by two. Let the government give us the trottoir, the road, and we will close it, and we will have our tables not into 100 meters. We will have them into 200 meters. So we will not get out of our employee. We will not have less work. So this is a positive thinking. They are searching now into a more adventurous tourism, things like this. Mr. Razaz, I think you were not hearing my question, but Sharon answered it. What is the main role now of employers' organizations to do in this time? How it will be the resilience? How they should think? How we should rethink? What is your idea about employers' organization and the private sector? How they should move now?
First, I have a little comment on one of the things mentioned. about
Yes.
whether it might be too early to talk about digitalize or die. Actually, I think it's too late to ask this question. I think the time is behind us. There's a very nice Chinese proverb that goes as follows. It says that when you're thirsty, it's already too late to start thinking about digging a well. And it's the case with the digital transformation. When the crisis is upon us, it's already too late to start thinking about digitalization. It should have been done earlier, but we're in time still to invest in the digital infrastructure and the digital skills and to change the mindset and to lobby for this digital transformation that we want to see in the region. Now you ask me about the employers associations and what they can do in a post-COVID scenario. In all honesty, I don't think I'm the best person to answer this question. However, we all know and we all have been calling for a more inclusive, a more balanced social dialogue in which also the civil society would be duly represented, no? So I heard Jihan saying this before, I heard Marco saying this before, and it goes perfectly fine with our way of seeing it, because the UFM by default has a multi-stakeholders approach. And for this dialogue to be conducive, it has to be as inclusive as it takes. And the civil society dimension here is very important. It's a dimension that is most often than not overseen. And I think the time has come to think of a modality to ensure this representation and this input by the civil society into the social dialogue. For the employers themselves, well, I think for one thing, they have enough problems and challenges to handle on their own, but now is the time to really rethink the model of doing business and the model and the modality of conducting the dialogue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Razaz. Mrs. Jihan, I think we all agreed that digitization will be the tool, and it will be the future. Is it easy to change habits? Is it easy to change persons? It is. What will happen to those sectors that we cannot digitize? What will happen to this? How they will work? And I have one question. Maybe we can answer it after for all of us. If COVID and by a year and a half, what will happen after it? How things will be run? But Jihan, tell me your answer about not the last question, the questions that I told you. Is it easy to change habit, to change people?
Actually, it's not quite easy to change the habits and the people. And as I said at the beginning, the mention of the culture is very important because we have a totally different culture from Tunisia to Egypt to Lebanon. So Middle East and North Africa countries has totally different habits, and we can see it in our different meetings because usually we involve all parties, all stakeholders. Of course, I cannot answer your last question because we really don't know what will happen next year, and hopefully we will find something to move on and move forward. But I can just answer the question that talking about how we will start. So we will have to start from the scratch, and starting from the scratch that will completely agree what Mohammed has just said is no one left behind. And when you say no one left behind is we don't have to forget civil society. We don't have to forget that all this, I would not say the Spring Revolution because we use this word so much, but everything has started with civil society, starting from Tunisia to Egypt, Lebanon now, and Algeria. You can see that civil society can make everything change and can make their voice raised to the governments. And employers and employees have to stick. I mean, when I say employers, I'm talking about trade unions and employers confederation. They have to adapt to this voice, and not forget that civil society, when you say civil society, it's not a little percentage, it's a very huge percentage. Even trade unions, you have trade unions of lawyers, trade unions of women, so you have so much to see. Local authorities, you have so many people, stakeholders that we do not involved in our commitment as employers and as SMEs, and particularly as government. So social dialogue is one of the solutions to raise our voice, but the most important is to start with the bipartite and to stick with the trade unions and employers, and then involve civil society. And that's what we are doing, and we did at since 2015 with the program Solid, and we will continue starting from November to work on this program Solid, and it's spread in 2 components with the ILO, so it's a huge program and involving most of the country of the region. And starting from the scratch means that we talk together, we find some solution, and then bring our voice as a charter, as we did in Solid. And when you said social dialogue, I said it every time, it's not only strike, it's not an only increase of salaries, it's implying the SDGs, women empowerment, investment, the dialogue between employers, organization, and trade unions, and government and civil society, and bring this voice and bring this recommendation to the government, to all our government, and stick to one voice, and then get back to the digitalization, which is one of the most important for the future. And if our government follow us, for example, to change some laws in the region, or to see, for example, the good practice of Lebanon, or the good practice of Egypt, what is done in the other countries, and take some example in the European Union. No one is perfect. I will not say that the European Union is perfect. Not all the countries are agreed together, but at least they try to get this union. And as Sharon said, they have to follow these laws. They have to follow these rules, because what we don't know as employers and trade unionists, we don't know that they have Business Europe and they have Arab Trade Union, European Trade Union, and these 2 components discuss together, and sometimes brings their voice to the parliament. They bring the collective bargaining, some laws, and it goes to the parliament, and it's adopted by all the countries of the European Union. And this is very important, because we don't do that as Arab countries, as MENA region. We don't have a platform where we can bring our voice and get our government to stick together. And sometimes in meetings with the governments, we discover that they have a law, and they voted the law, and they signed the law, and no one knows about it. And the employers and the employees, they don't know that this law exists in their own country. And that's why the culture is important, and also to share the information, to share the know-how. And this is with the digitalization, because people now, everyone is on Facebook, everyone is on Twitter, everyone is on LinkedIn. So you can share the information easily. And this is part of the digitalization.
Thank you, Jihan. Mr. Razaz, I have a question that a participant put it in front of us about Egypt. And I think you know about Egypt better than us. Please, in 1 minute, what do you say for this? Because I have to conclude in 5 minutes. We will have 5 minutes to conclude, but I will give you 1 minute, please. I want an answer for this participant, this friend who asked, what will happen in Egypt? How do you think we can do this in Egypt? 1 minute, please, Mr. Razak.
Okay. First of all, a little disclaimer. I am Egyptian, but I do not represent Egypt. I'm not a diplomat.
No, but I am asking.
My capacity as a representative.
I am taking advantage of this.
But what I can say,
yes,
I know is that the first wave of investment in any new technology, be it digital or not, is usually the most expensive, because you have to build infrastructure, you have to create a conducive environment. But then, as the technologies are mainstreamed and as the process is streamlined, the cost per addition goes down. It's a normal curve for the cost benefit in any investment in a new technology. So it might be expensive at the beginning, but again, it must be considered not in terms of the absolute figure, but rather in terms of the return on this investment. The return on this investment is to facilitate trade, to contribute to regional integration, is to create jobs and opportunities, is to open the box for out-of-the-box solutions and innovation and creativity, to unlock much potential and unleash many resources that otherwise are not tapped. So this is my 5 cents
thank you,
for the situation in Egypt.
Thank you, Mr. Azad. We will have only 5 minutes to conclude. And as we are facing a cognitive situation that did not happen ever before in the life and history of the world, because we are now in a different conditions of life and different condition of civilization and everything. I want from all of us to say a one sentence, to say in 1 minute how, because I think we agreed that digitization will it will be the solution, and we will be living in the digitization system. But I want from you how we can be more resilient, how we can rebuild the life, how we can continue in this sense, how employers and private, I'm talking about employers and private sector in this sense. And I will begin with Jihan.
It's the more difficult question. Why you start with me? Start with the.
I want your conclusion. I want your conclusion, Jihan. Conclude, please.
Let me at the end. Leave me at the end, Hisham.
Okay, I will leave you to the end. Okay, I will go to Mr. Sabra.
Well, let me say, Hisham, let me say that I am optimistic. You know that we Lebanese, we have faced hurdles for decades, and we have learned how to be immune and to adapt based on different problems, conflicts, crises, etc. Besides, Lebanese entrepreneurs are pioneers, innovative, they are creative. They always take new initiatives. If there is a problem, they find another way. So I am assured that we will pass this problem, and we are eager to go back to normal life with digitization or without. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabra. Sharon.
My views are a bit different than Mr. Sabra. We in Malta are already embracing digitization, and we believe that it's the way forward. Obviously, it's difficult to adapt. I'm not saying that there isn't the disadvantages of digitization. However, we have to try, and as business support organizations, we are facilitating the way. We are discussing with government and with industry what's the problems and how to find a solution. We are part of a global market. We can't keep on thinking of only national. Malta more than other countries, because we have lack of resources. due to the size of the island. However, we are a bridge between Africa and the EU. So we feel very honored to be part of BUSINESSMED and to facilitate, to share challenges and to share best practices of how to go forward.
Okay, thank you, Sham. Mr. Razaz, are you with us? Muhammad?
I am always with you.
No, because your camera was closed, so I thought you were so.
Just to say that Sharon has
conclude.
She has another meeting.
Well, yes, you want me to? I'll be very, very short, Jihan. I know we're completely out of time. I'll just say that the way forward goes through reaping all the benefits and harnessing all the potential of the fourth industrial revolution. We're already thinking about the post-digital age. I mean, some reports are already out and trying to figure out how the fifth industrial revolution would be like. But with what we have in hand, the time is upon us. There's no time to lose. Digital streamlining is definitely a key factor in any post-pandemic recovery that is sustainable and smart.
Okay. Ines.
Oh, I want to conclude with this number. Actually,
1 minute, Ines.
Oh, you're very hard on me today. What's happening?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, I want to conclude with an important number statistic. Around 70% of digital transformation projects around the world fail. And this is no easy task. We know it everywhere in the world. It's not just in the Arabic world. So one of the major reasons why digital transformation projects fail is actually not related to technology, not related to financial issues. It's related to the human factor, to people resisting to change because they are afraid of losing of their jobs. And just like Jihan said earlier, some people think that this is actually a pretext, whether it's COVID-19 or digitizing, it's a pretext to get rid of people actually, and to just fully automate businesses. So that's why I want to go back and talk again about digital readiness and rising awareness and talking about digital transformation as a must. It's digitize, transform your business model, it's update yourself, or die and see other startups from different parts of the world taking advantage of the situation and disrupting you. I want to add just one important point that was discussed earlier, which is actually the cost of digitization. Now, I want to answer very quickly by saying, try the cost of non-digitization. Try it.
Okay. I will have my conclusion, and I will leave after my conclusion. I will leave the floor to Jihan to conclude everything. What I will say is this: in the history, when civilizations and people were facing such cognitive issues, those who survive are those people who their culture, their knowledge, and their cooperation help us to survive the challenges. If we will not do this at the level of business sector, at the level of countries, at the level of the humanity, I think we will be facing something very disastrous. So I will return back to cooperation, rethinking the model, and to help each other to face this, what is going on. I think this is the only solution that we can do now, and we can move forward, and we can be positive, and we should not be very reactive. We should be proactive in this time. This is the only way that it will help us do it. It is in our minds, everything, all solutions are here in our brains, and this will help us find the solution. It is employers are asked to do. They should do it. They should help their employee. They should stick to their employee. They should be on a social scheme, more on social schemes, because this is the way to overcome all this pandemic era and we are living in. Jihan, the floor is yours. Please conclude, and thank you very much for BUSINESSMED.
Thank you very much, all of you, for being here today. You say just one sentence, so I will use just one sentence to answer your question, Hisham. So one sentence is invest in people within all the companies. Otherwise, nothing can be done without all these people. So we are not here raising just the voice of the companies, but if you don't invest on your people in terms of trainings or adapting to the situation, all the companies will not follow. We have to understand that the companies are not managed by a leader or a manager or a boss. It's the people. So we have to invest on people in order to have these companies going up and rising. Even if you work from home, even if you work on digitalization, if the people are not having this feeling of sentiment d'appartenance, the feeling of attachment for the organization or the company, you will not have any result, positive result with or without digitalization. So this COVID shows that you have to invest on people. So I just conclude by saying thank you to all for being here today, and just to open the floor to the next webinar that will be held in November. We don't have the date yet, and the next webinar will be on social dialogue. And if you are really interested in this subject, and I think social dialogue, we will have also guests on Organization of International Employers, of ILO, of trade unions, of employers organization. I also invite Mr. Rabih to be one of our speakers also in the future, in this future event, and Hisham or yourself also. Muhammad, I invite you, you know, you are invited already. So, and also we will have another seminars on the business country desk, which is the future of digitalization in business and FDIs within the region. This is a tool we are preparing. It's a platform for business on the internet, on the cloud, I think. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Hisham, for all this moderation.